Okay, I want to welcome everybody. It is Thursday night. It's 7 o'clock Central, so we know what that means here in our group. It is time for another weekly conversations with Commodores, and I'm so honored and pleased to have my guest, John Pointer, with us tonight. Thank you, John, for making some
Hey,
time and being with us this evening. This is going to be a lot of fun.
thank you, Bernard.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. And guys, as we do each week, I try to bring lively conversations with folks who are affiliated with the program in one way or another, whether they're former players or coaches or cheerleaders, trainers, managers in the band, whatever their affiliation was. I want to have conversations with them because I want to relive some old times. And as I've said many times on this, and John, forgive me for saying this because it doesn't just apply to you, it applies to all of us, that we try to remember things as they happen. And sometimes we don't remember every single thing that happened, but
Amen.
we
Me too.
remember most of what happened. Give you
Yeah.
a quick example. There were maybe 60,000 people in the stadium that game, not 160,000 people like that maybe claim that. But anyway, for those of you who don't know who my guest is, this man is, he really is one of the backbones of Vanderbilt football, particularly in the last 50 years. John is part of the first wave of African American football players to play and contribute to our program. Starting with Taylor Stokes and coming all the way up through today, so many African American players paved the way for the next generation, and John is part of the first generation. And not that just John showed up. John showed out. He played a ton. He was the heart of the defense in the mid early 70s. He then went on to play in the professional ranks in the Canadian League as well as for the Packers. But that's only part of the story. This man has many, many, many stories. He has fought government corruption. He is an author. He is a mentor, a teacher, and he's a leader. And if we could spend an hour on each of those segments of John's life, but that'll have to say for part two. But where I want to start tonight, John, we're going to be all over the place. I want to start a little bit of your story. I know where you came from, but most folks don't. Talk about your early childhood and how you ended up coming to Vanderbilt.
First, Bernard, I want to say this is excellent. What you're doing to generate awareness and to bring back all the former players and other affiliated employees of Vanderbilt, I think is grand. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Greetings to former players, fans, family members. Um, I'm John Pointer. I'm from Columbia, Tennessee, which is only 60 miles south from Nashville, heading down the old I-60, 65. I was very fortunate initially to have a great friend of mine, Joe Reynolds, as a Vanderbilt star defensive player. Joe was from Columbia, and Joe would allow me to come up ninth and 10th grade years just to be a part of watching practice, go to ball games, and the whole 9 yards. And Joe didn't know that I was blooming into being a prospect, not only in the SEC, nationally, especially after the fact that in the South, there was a surge of African Americans being recruited, especially in the SEC, particularly. So when it became official that I was a prospect under the NCAA regulations, Vanderbilt began recruiting me, and I pretty much had made up my mind. I knew that education. I knew of the comfort, the comfort area as far as only 60 miles from home. As a matter of fact, my father had just gotten promoted to be the manager of the A&P food store right there on West End, pretty much close behind the stadium. I think he accepted the position in 1975. So I signed in 1976, especially after Vanderbilt beat University of Tennessee there in Neyland Stadium. All the guys turned around and pointed at me in the stands and said, Pointer, you better come with us. black and gold. So it's been a long journey, a good journey, but a very, very long journey.
Now, when you decided to come to Vanderbilt, were there any other schools that you were seriously considering, or was that Vanderbilt was it
No,
for you?
no, SEC schools. I had Notre Dame of interest, Iowa, because I was a student, our high school exchange students. You know how they do those exchange. What do you call those? I forgot now. When you go for a week or two, we were in Fort Madison, Iowa, and the high school wrestling coach was a former All-American at Iowa, and he saw me in the basketball. He saw me playing basketball in the gym, and he immediately contacted Hayden Fry and said, "Hey, Coach Fry, I want you to get this guy to Iowa now." So I was recruited by Penn State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and all of those, and University of Tennessee. University of Tennessee was second, third place for me because of the linebacker tradition that they had back in the 70s. I mean, Bernard, it was serious. Jackie Wallace, Andy Spiver. As a matter of fact, I was very disappointed when Andy had the car crash and died when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, I was so impressed with those guys. I mean, I was leaning as far as linebacker play, Tennessee, but I really enjoyed the environment at Vanderbilt.
John, one of my teammates, Brad Gaines, and his brother
Yes,
Chris was also a
yes,
teammate. Their older brother Greg was at Tennessee, if I remember correctly, probably about that same time.
they're good friends of mine. Greg's a good friend of mine. Yes, he and I were in the All-Star game for the state of Tennessee.
I figured you guys were close in age, but having Joe Reynolds there, being only an hour away, and you probably getting to know a lot of your future teammates helped as well to kind of seal the deal, so to speak.
Yes.
At the time you signed at Vanderbilt, was the racial makeup of the program, the players and the coaches in the program, and even the school student body population, were those on your radar? Were those important facts or factors to you in making your decision?
They were important facts. I knew that it was a very low ratio, but I had such a great relationship with the guys, black or white. It didn't make any difference. And I knew that it had to change. And I was hoping that I could be a part of change. Our numbers were increasing as far as recruitment of African American players, but at the time it was pretty low. And the guys that were before me, great guys, African Americans, they didn't complain, they didn't fuss, they didn't worry about, well, they're not playing me because I'm black. No one did that. Everybody got along very well and everybody worked hard. And I love that environment. I love the fact that produce and you'll play.
Well, John, let's pause your story for a minute. I'm going to see if I do this technologically correct. I know you got us a PowerPoint that's important that we're going to talk about a whole bunch of folks. And let's see if I do this correctly. Can you now see the screen, the first
Yes,
page?
I can.
All right, before we get into your future teammates and the ones that you want to recognize, let's talk about what happened in South Carolina and why it's important about what Vanderbilt is now doing with the NFL.
Yeah, and this is why I sent this to you on top of the PowerPoint. I think it's imperative to know that Vanderbilt University Medical Center has an official relationship with the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame Health Foundation. And it is to support any former NFL players in their medical conditions, as well as any mental or society concerns. And I think this needs to go out. We've got so many former NFL players, Vanderbilt graduates, and their friends and former teammates that they know If they live in this area, then they need to get in contact with Vanderbilt. I'm very disappointed that this has not been an outlet source with the National Football League Players Association, with the NFL Alumni Association, and I'm concerned, well, Vanderbilt University Medical Center had it out, but there should have been some outreach coming from the athletics department. I love the athletics department, nothing about you guys, but you got to know this is so important. It's important. We got to get this kind of information out.
Well, John, us having this kind of conversation, I think will help to spread the word.
Yes.
I know that there was an announcement by the medical center back in October, but I haven't seen anything since then. So we're going to spread the word tonight. And what I was referring to in South Carolina, it was a tragic story. Former South Carolina football player, also he played in the pros, took his life and took the life of several others in the last 24 hours by murder-suicide. And it just, I don't know much about his story, but I'm just hoping that before anybody gets to that point again, either their family or they will reach out through the Vanderbilt Medical Center or through the athletics department, because I'm sure they can put you in touch with the right folks. But I wanted to make sure we pointed that out tonight. And now let's keep going, John. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'll let you take it from there.
Well, Bernard, as you know, there's been some claims that student athletes from Vanderbilt who have graduated have been proclaiming that they're pioneers. I mean, that's okay. Sort of like in the music business, somebody used to state, "I'm the hardest working man in the show business," and then somebody else would say, "No, I'm the hardest working man in show business." But when some of these proclamations start coming out, we old guys, the real true pioneers, decided we better come together and we better try to see if we could tell the university, here we are, we're winners, we love you all, but let's be honest, we're not going anywhere. We know the pace we set, with the assistance of our white teammates back in the 70s. So I want to show to the nation and to the university, guys who are out there trying to make a difference in society who played at Vanderbilt.
And John, before we head into that list, we got a whole bunch of folks watching. I want to give them some shout outs and let you know who's there. We got OJ Fleming from Franklin, Tennessee. Yes. Tyler Unzicker.
Yes.
Greg Smith.
Yes.
Jeff Madden.
Hey, yes, Mr. Jeff.
That's some of the few who were there. So let's see. These are the VU football players.
And Bernard.
Yes, sir.
Those men have been true leaders ever since they left Vanderbilt. I'm very proud of everyone that you mentioned. And I know there are more. I'm very proud of them.
You certainly are.
Yes.
All right, let's go. We're going to start in recognition of the African American.
All right, this is just in recognition. As I mentioned, there were so many guys that stayed over as intern coaching, after 74 to 75. They overlapped with us in 76. So we know one another. We knew one another during that era. And that's when the initiation, there was the Walter Overton after Taylor Stokes, but you'll see. And
right, I'm gonna pull them up and you share a little bit about them, okay?
Yes, and I made it a point not to say James Drillkill came in 75 because I get it confused because there may have been an injury, there may have been something else, but Thrill, great guy, great wide receiver, flanker, tight end, is a phenomenal dad, has an Emmy in painting, I think is great. So,
wow.
And James is probably watching. Okay, Doug Nettles, our first African-American pro football player. Yes, there were outstanding white pro football players dating back since 80 years ago. Matter of fact, one was at my Columbia High School, Mac Peebles. Mr. Peebles was a gentle giant. But Doug, I'm proud of Doug. Doug was the first, was a great leader off the field, and I'm glad to call him a friend. Hadn't spoken to him in ages, but a great leader. Bree and I talk, Breenard Wilson, we talk weekly, constantly. You talk about a student athlete. I have two that I favor, Breenard Wilson and Tim English. Those guys were the epitome of student athletes. And I can listen to Breenard any day of the week, and we can talk about anything. And he's a great guy. You talking about the Philadelphia Eagles? They still love him still today. Played in the Super Bowl right here in Nashville. Ricky Jeans, Mr. West Tennessee. Ricky played at Collierville, was the Collierville Flash. He was an I-back. Didn't see any time here at Vanderbilt, but he stayed the course and got his degree. And we all love Ricky. He's a great businessman. He has a State Farm insurance company right down from Elvis's Graceland, less than 500 yards. He's had it there for 30 plus years. Ed Parrish, my friend Ed Parrish, Dyersburg, Tennessee, all Dyersburg, hardest running back you ever wanted to meet, only 5'7", 5'8". Now, here's the beauty about Ed Parrish. Mr. Corporate America was with corporate Walmart in an executive position, just retired less than 2 years ago. A great grandfather, grandparents, great guy. We talk weekly as well. Walter, the daddy, the man. As you posted, as Vanderbilt Athletics posted, Walter just retired from the Tennessee Titans as the general manager of the stadium. We're proud of Walter. Walter was a quiet and has always been a quiet leader, but he knows how to lead. So we salute Walter, and we're so proud of him. Proud grandfather as well. Ernest Bernard Cecil. You won't meet as many people in America as tougher than nails than Ernest Cecil. Ernie was a linebacker. Ernie, after playing with Vanderbilt, became one of the top-rated investigators in the drug crime scene. Did a wonderful job. Got hurt a little bit in his employment. Served his time, and is a devout Christian, a super grandfather, and a serious guy, committed still to this day as far as living life. And I'm proud of Ernest. He's a great friend of mine and fellow linebacker. Reggie Calvin, a father, grandfather, a minister. He's still with Nissan for 30 plus years, an avid tennis player, competes in tennis, and being 60 plus years of age, is in great shape, can play at that level right now. Brother Reggie. David Chip Hale. I just talked to Chip this morning. David was a run stopper, nose tackle from South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Salute. David is a 40 plus year educator, coach, great motivator, sincere with the youth, is nothing but just an excellent role model. Vanderbilt will see more of him coming back. I assure you that. Walter Bugsy Jordan, sharp, cornerback, slick, tough, hard hitter. It's been with corporate GM for, I want to say 20 plus 30 years. Bugsy's in Illinois. Okay, this crew to the left, Ricky Jeans. Beside Ricky Jeans, Curtis, the Squirrel Lusk, great I-back from Warren County, used to wear us out in Columbia High School. We used to compete, Warren County against Columbia. They are there to meet the one and only, or to see the one and only David Culley. And I'll tell you about Culley in a few minutes. And Mike Mitchell came in from Florida, outside linebacker. Okay, right quick, they were there supporting Culley in all his years in the NFL as assistant coaches. And they were there on a weekend at one of the games that Culley, invited them to attend. It's a great picture. Okay, here's Chicago has their sweetness. This is our sweetness, Mr. Preston Brown. Preston has Vanderbilt and SEC records, probably, I think, still today. Preston being drafted by the New England Patriots. Preston, a father, grandfather, been in the finance business for years, just retired in the automotive financing, has written a book, will be, and is a speaker as well. He's out there on YouTube. Look him up. Preston Brown, that's his book. I'm celebrating, I'm marketing your book, Preston. I don't know that guy.
Who's that guy? Who's that guy?
I don't know that guy.
All
But
right,
the
we'll
lovely
give him.
But the lovely lady that's with me, that's my wonderful wife, Vicky. We've been married 37 years. We met in Montreal when I was playing in the Canadian Football League. The beauty about it is that being Canadian, through her choir here in Nashville, Christchurch, she has sung with every gospel diva, every country music legend, either in the studios or in the background. Why? Because the producers have told her, because of her crisp speaking, being a Canadian, that lead singer could have that twang, that country music twang, and it's all right. I mean, it's she loves it. She loves Nashville.
Awesome.
This is the epitome of Vanderbilt football.
Oops.
And you're going back to Dennis,
No,
since the 70s. Everything you look into, how do you win? How do you win big? You go out and recruit a big man named Dennis Harrison. And this is something that we forget about Dennis. Dennis was also an academic All-American, and played wonderfully with the New England, with the Philadelphia Eagles for 11 years, is still coaching and teaching at Brentwood Middle School. And he's also a minister, a great leader in society. And we talk constantly. He will be watching this as well, I'm sure.
John, one of your former teammates from Huntsville, Decatur area, Kenny Coles.
Kenny.
Hello.
Great, smart, tough, sharp lawyer. Hey, Kenny, I love you, baby. Floyd Hughes. Floyd played with James Steerkill at East High, same school that Oprah graduated from. Floyd is dynamic, articulate, upbeat all the time, kept everybody loose, in the dorms, in the locker rooms. Didn't see much playing time. A gifted athlete. I think Vanderbilt kind of shot themselves in the foot. Didn't know where to put such a very prominent athlete. I think that Vanderbilt really missed an opportunity on a because Floyd played high school basketball. He was very athletic, but they didn't know what to do because also he was a star, big stud type running back. So, but he's great. He's a minister, grandfather, loving husband, and a knucklehead partner. He's a good friend of mine. Rod Nixon, Buffalo, New York, 6'6", big guy, came down here to Nashville. First guy I'd ever seen live slam dunk a basketball backwards. Okay, Rod is doing great, living in New York, retired, married his college sweetheart. He's a blues singer. Every summer, he's one of the lead singers in their blues festivals in Buffalo. So we guys have got to go up there and support him. Great guy. There he is. You just did a wonderful interview with AJ. AJ was a guy that was so easy tempered and nice. And I never played with AJ, but I knew AJ when after you interviewed with AJ, we talked on the phone like there's been no loss of time. There's been no 40 years differences. We're caught up, and we're going to talk from this day forward. So I'm glad that you reached out and recruited AJ. You admire all of his background in the legal society. I admire for who he is and what he stood up for. And AJ, I love you, baby. Good man.
I'm proud to call AJ friend.
Yes, he's a friend of mine as well. Here's my man, Adolph Groves. Adolph is here somewhere in Middle Tennessee, but it's hard to catch on to Adolph. You're talking about the epitome of a big back, fast, dynamic. Adolph was the man. Adolph has done very well. He's a grandfather, a minister, and he's somewhere in Middle Tennessee. So if anybody has a phone on him, let us know. We'd like to say hello to Adolph. There's so many of the guys who like to say hey to him. This is who we are. David Culley epitomizes all those guys that we've just shown you all across the nation. David, small town Tennessee. David, an African-American quarterback in the SEC, not seeing much playing time, never complain. You hear me? Never complain. Always supportive. Great friends with his fellow quarterbacks still to this day. So, and we sent David a congratulatory little PowerPoint from all the guys from the 70s. That Monday after the Super Bowl, after he'd signed with the Texans, he had called every one of us individually to thank us. Wow. That's the type of guy that David Culley is, and we're so proud of him. We'll never forget these guys. And I know that there are some white soldiers of ours that also have passed. But in this markings of the African-American pioneers, Jesse Mathers was a superior athlete. I mean, unbelievable, Bernard. Kimmy Weaver, my role model, my mentor as a linebacker. Kimmy was one of the last cuts by the Dallas Cowboys. Went on with was a South Regional Vice President in marketing for a major corporation until he passed away. Frank Mordecai, one of the last to be released by the New Orleans Saints. Fantastic, superior running back.
Record set.
Just unbelievable. Frank had a real bad knee injury, so he didn't make it in the NFL, but went on to the military, served as a great military servant. I think he was there 20 plus years, became a recruiter. God bless him. God bless all of those men.
John, we got a couple other folks who've rolled in here that want to say hello. Billy Smith, one of the former Keystone Cops, Birmingham, Nashville police officers who was the equipment and all that, says to you hello.
Hello, Billy.
And Christy Houck says that you're the man, said to tell you hello.
What a class act. Get Christy to tell you about what he did to support Ed Temple and how he brought Ed Temple into a new world of young, white, private academy students.
In a few weeks, can you still hear me?
With Ed Temple, I think it's beautiful.
Well, Christy's coming on the show in a few weeks, so I hope we'll get into that story.
Yes. Ronnie Myrick, big hitter, strong safety, outside linebacker. Ronnie was also a late cut with an NFL team. I forgot. Ronnie stopped a running back for Alabama, had never lost any yardage. Well, it took Ronnie, the man, to stop him behind the offensive lineman. Ronald Hale, a 6'7", 6'8" giant. Great guy. We love Ronnie. We love both Rons. Gone before their time, Joe Reynolds, my fellow Colombian. God bless the fact that Joe's mom and my mom are still best of friends. Ms. Reynolds is still living. She's 98. My mom will be 95 in a few more weeks. Best of friends. I went to all of Joe's games in high school, junior high and high school, and Joe would allow me to come up at Vanderbilt as a snotty-nosed kid, ninth grade, 10th grade. And then, as I said, when I became a prospect, then Vanderbilt made it official that they were officially recruiting me. But thanks to Joe. I got there also, Greg Dandridge. They used to call him Gigi, nose tackle, great guy, gone before their time. Here's a gentleman that, did you ever meet him, Bernard?
Never did.
A super dynamic guy, came from Madison, Tennessee, came to Vanderbilt. Everybody loved Lonnie. I never played with him. He made me feel so welcome in the locker room, at the practice fields, and even after the games, he would say, "Hey, that's why you need to come here. You need to come to Vanderbilt." Just upbeat, dynamic, Lonnie, the best of the best.
John, let me ask you. Let's pause where we are for just a second. Let
Sure.
you get a drink. You've been sharing all these awesome stories of these important men. Why is it important to you to share their stories, to get their stories out in public? Why is that important?
Great question, Mr. Attorney. The fact is that it's the right thing to do. It's the most important issue. You can't allow for employees of Vanderbilt, no disrespect to them, to make decisions on people such as ourselves, you included, who are part of the true foundation of Vanderbilt University. You can look back at Vanderbilt in the 40s. You can look back at Vanderbilt in the 50s. There are people, be it not only athletes, there are people who helped set the foundation for Vanderbilt. These men, and I guess I want to drag along with them, we have to make it a little easier for the influx of additional African-American male and female student athletes. For an example, we didn't have counselors. We didn't have anyone. We had a Black assistant coach, Herbert Alexander, who was fantastic, but Coach was not a professor, or was not a counselor that we could go and talk to on issues of concerns of our environment or our playing conditions, be it, "Hey, I think I'm being infringed on, coach. I think I'm better than this athlete in front of me. And why is it that I'm not seeing my playing time properly?" So those things, and things that were going on in the city, affiliated being a student athlete, as you well know, Bernard, we as young men attending Vanderbilt on a football scholarship, you had a chance to explore society. And at that point in time in the early 70s, we had just come off of the Jim Crow law. That's, you're talking about in the late 1969, you're talking about the early 70s. If a family are true blue segregationists, no government, no city government, no federal government, no city government, no university was going to change their spirits. It was something that had to be formulated in the fact that, okay, we've got to include them in all things. So we took the blunt of a lot of things that made it at times very, very rough and tough. And maybe we'll talk about it the next time you and I we speak. But we made it through.
I'm glad you're sharing their stories. We did notice, and I'm getting to our next um, slide here of what they recently did at the University of Kentucky, which I think is such a cool tribute.
Yeah. First and foremost, every university across America has their stud, male or female, athletes enshrined. Yes, and top rated coach. One thing I like about this, and as much as I've read about it, the University of Kentucky revealed the fact that, you know, this core group of guys were have been recognized. And I sent that to you to show to the nation of Vanderbilt Commodores that, we've got Perry Wallace's statue there. And Perry, yes, he was a pioneer, but he was in basketball. In football, we were just a couple of years away from Perry, and we all knew Perry. Perry knew us as well as friends. Um, so, I'd like for, we know that Vanderbilt's watching this. We'd like for Vanderbilt to think about the fact that they've got to make recognition. They've got to make announcements. They need to make presentations, maybe not as granular as this, but they've got to do this type of awareness to let people know, hey, there were guys who started this choo-choo train, and we're going to move this locomotive right ahead. You got to have men and women of vision as leaders, not talking about the chancellor, not talking about the AD. You got to have people involved that have vision that could help the university and the athletics department to know you got to think long term. What's the message you want to send to a prospect and to their parents? And a lot of the parents who are black or brown, or a good percentage are going to be single parents. They need to know, outside of, we're going to take care of them, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What kind of heritage, what kind of foundation building can they leave here if they do the right things?
I did see that, well, several years ago, the university did a short video on Taylor Stokes coming back and getting his
Yes.
degree. And then I saw that the SEC also, sometime in the last 2 years, did a short video on him as well. But something permanent like this would be a really, really cool tribute. And before we get off of this, John, I don't want to forget a few others who are also
Yes.
should be mentioned.
For any of my Commodore teammates and fans and friends that are out there, if you guys see Larry McDormand, he's in East Tennessee. He's up there close to Dollywood in a very prestigious position, I'm told. George Dickerson is living in Indianapolis. If anybody sees him, please. Now, Ken Pittman is still driving tractor trailer rigs based here out of Nashville. So we got a couple of guys that speak to him, but not on a regular basis. So anyway, somebody finds them, let us know. I want to, on this, I wanted to leave this as far as letting everybody know it takes a village. And if we didn't have white teammates that came up here 18, 19 years of age, with the same gut interest of wanting to win, wanted to produce, wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They did it, and they supported us. They may not understood some of the things we were going through, but they supported us, and God bless them. Coaching staff, as you know, we constantly stay weekly in contact with Gene Wyndham. And before Hubbard Alexander, Coach Axe passed away, the same with Coach Axe. We stayed in contact with it. The administration, Bill Kelly and Glenda Kelly, God bless them. We're part of we communicate with them weekly as well. Here's what I want to leave. Don't take the scoreboard as serious as it is after you leave, because I want to credit Vanderbilt. They did bring us great guys to the university who are nothing but just world beaters. They're still making a positive force into society still to this day. And that's the beauty about being a Vanderbilt former student athlete.
Well, thank you for sharing that history. Thank you for highlighting those men.
Yes.
And thank you for all that you do, pushing forward the history so that we don't forget the
Yes.
history.
Yes.
Now, when I was in my third year in 1988, the fellas were recruited as a recruiting class. That include Derek Gragg, Carlos Thomas, and all of those guys, Corey Harris. They were my teammates for a couple of years. And I can't help but think of the parallel of the importance of that group that came in the late 80s and their athleticism and what they've accomplished in life with that generation of players who you just mentioned from 15, maybe even longer years prior, the decade before. And now, not to skip around, but now coming forward, we've got so many of these fellas who've come in and not only gone into the professional ranks of football, but in the professional ranks of all professions,
right.
whether they're white, brown, yellow, it doesn't matter the color, but they all represent us. And that's what's cool about what we're doing here, having these conversations. And John, I can't thank you enough for educating us, for providing that history for us tonight. But I'm not letting you out of here because we're getting back to John Pointer for the next couple of minutes. I'm not letting you out of here until we discuss a couple of things.
Yes.
I want to talk about your transition from high school to college ball, and then from college to the professional ranks. Now, we're going to start from going from Columbia, Tennessee, where you were a big fish in a little pond, to Vanderbilt, where you were not such a big fish in a big old pond in the SEC. How was that transition for you?
Oh, how about this? 6'7", I can't think of his first name either, Mike or Tim Wilson, All-American at the University of Georgia, offensive tackle. We're playing Georgia. I'm a freshman. We're playing Georgia at their homecoming in front of 88,000 people. James Brown is on the sidelines. They're playing Georgia's Junkyard Dog. Big Wilson comes out and points at me. And he says, Pointer? No, he says, boy, does your mama know you're out here? Ooh, and of course, I had to talk some trash back to him. But it made me realize this is the SEC, the best conference in America. And, I never did look back. I enjoyed the competition. I knew we were lacking in talent, but my heart, my spirit, my soul was pretty much spot on. I'm proud to say that majority of the games, my 4 years, I started. So, I'm very appreciative of the time served.
Before we transition out of the SEC, a couple of folks want us to give you a shout out. Reverend Henry Beelan, one of my former teammates, says to tell you hello.
Hello, sir.
Henry is up in Manhattan and serves a big church and is doing some wonderful things and was on the show a few weeks ago
Yes, yes, bless it.
of our
Keep
conversation.
up the good work, sir.
Ed Parrish says, nice history lesson and says to tell you hello.
Pooh.
All right, John, let's transition out of the SEC and into the professional ranks. I know you played in the Canadian Football League for a little bit. You played for the Packers in the NFL. What
Yes.
was that like coming out of the SEC, the best conference in the
Right.
NCAA? But
Right.
there's no comparison when you go to the professional ranks because everybody top from their schools. So what
Right.
was that like?
Let me tell you, first, I want to thank Martin Poe. Martin Poe was our strength and conditioning coach, as the guys know, here at Vanderbilt. Martin, being a great supporter and former and an alum of Father Ryan, knew Milt Von Mann, the Southeastern Regional Scout for the Cincinnati Bengals, and an English teacher at Father Ryan. Well, Milt wanted me, Mike Wright, Ronald Hale, and I think somebody else. I can't think of the name right. He wanted us to work out in front of Forrest Gregg, who had just been hired at the Cincinnati Bengals. Forrest was so impressed that he told me, he told the guys individually, but he told me, he said, John, if I don't draft you, I'm going to get you as a free agent. Well, the last night of draft night, I got a phone call, and they faxed over a contract for me to sign as a free agent. So I want to say that athletically, I felt spot on. In the mindset of a student athlete, I was good. Life was great being a student athlete. Now, the mental aspect of being a linebacker, I was all over the place. I had 4 linebacker coaches at Vanderbilt, and I was all over the place. And so when Cincinnati released me, they said, John, you just need to gain finesse, and we think you need to go up in the CFL, and we will be watching you. And by God, they did. After I played out my option year, when Forrest went to Green Bay, they signed me in the wintertime. So I really enjoyed the career. I got a lot of injuries, got a lot of post-career injuries to this day, I must confess. But life was good. And I got to tell you this right quick. One time I had my shoulder operated on. My kids were young adults, and they were talking to the mom, and I'm on medication, and it was a bring you home after surgery, and I'm tossing and turning on medication, heavy medication, and I was so frustrated. I went out there in the living room and I said, I'm so upset that I played football. I wished I never played football. And my kids told me, they said, Dad, if you hadn't played, you would not have gone to Canada and met Mom, and therefore she produced us.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I had a cat, I would have kicked the cat.
Yeah.
Like,
we all have those days, but at least you can laugh about it now.
Yeah. Oh, I remember one play. Anthony Tournay, the now Hall of Famer from Southern Cal, #1 draft choice, Cincinnati Bengals, offensive tackle. I'm playing outside linebacker on a rushing play in practice. And there was a little ball movement, and I jumped with my quickness. Anthony, being 6'7", 6'8", caught me by the neck, picked me up, and was doing this the whole time. But as ferocious as he was on the field, even at times he knocked on the door in the dorm and said, hey, brother, let's go do some Bible studies. Whoa, that's the type of class that, you're around when you're talking about student athletes and professional athletes that do it the right way.
Before we get out of here, I want to ask you your opinion. Chancellor Dearmeyer and Athletics Director Candace Lee had a press conference last week. Unprecedented information. At least $300 million is being dedicated to improve basketball and football facilities, and it's yet to be unfolded exactly what that'll look like. Did that excite you, that announcement?
Yes, it does. It does.
You know, it does for me too, particularly when it was announced that at least a third of that money is coming directly from the university. And I don't know if that's ever in the history of the school had that kind of support toward the athletics facilities, or the athletics department.
Yes.
Chancellor Dearmeyer has made it crystal clear how important he feels that sports are to the college experience.
Yes.
And I'm just so pleased at what I'm hearing so far. Now, we haven't won a single game since the press conference, but we're seeing, at least this is my perspective, Athletics Director Candace Lee she's making moves and she's making hard decisions, but she's pushing forward things to support all of our programs, our sports programs. And for that, I'm very thankful. But that's not my question. I really want to hear what your thoughts are. Where do you think we're going with football these days after hearing this and seeing what Coach Clarkley has done thus far?
We can't get in a rat race with these public state universities. They're already there. I mean, they're national contenders every year. We have to build a solid foundation. And I want to say this about Vanderbilt. It's great and it's grand that you can say you create a 40-year plan. Let us see it. Let us be a part of it. Let us participate in it. Now, the fact that when prospects come in with their mom, with the parents, or with a single mom or a dad, the fact is there's always been an imagery that, well, we don't want former alums to be associated with prospects because it may be some NCAA violation. Give me a break. We are former student athletes of one of the finest universities in not only the South, in America. Therefore, we are great men that the parents need to know us, and the prospect needs to see us. Sort of like me and Joe Reynolds, or me meeting Anthony Joseph, or meeting Bugsy Jordan, or whatever. The fact that, hey, kid, come on this way. Hey, look, I'm an old timer, but I paid my dues and it's going to be all right here. You can be a winner. You have to bring in that whole winning tradition. I like the chancellor's background because apparently he went to major universities as a student, as a professor, and understood the fact that superior athletes lead to developing winning ways, but it's got to be a strong foundation underneath that superior athlete, be it when he was at Southern Cal or UCLA or Northwestern or Notre Dame. Great superior athletes, but the majority of the players were just hardworking athletes that supported the whole process. And Vanderbilt's you can't chase after immediate winning. You've got to create it.
Yeah. And John, I like the term for former ball players, former alums. Well, you're always an alum. Former players in the football program maybe being considered as ambassadors of the program.
Amen.
And I think it'd be pretty cool if they could somehow incorporate that into that process. But we'll have to let compliance figure that part out. But John, I have so thoroughly enjoyed our conversation tonight. Thank you for your time, your history lesson, and for what you've been doing for all these many years.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it, Bernard. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, don't
All right,
worry.
let's go, baby. Let's go, Doors.
Anchor down.
Anchor down.
Y'all have a safe rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, man.